This is an essay that I actually wrote in 2022. Tolerance. What is the definition of tolerance? The definition of tolerance is to endure. It's to endure willingly, whether or not you're happy about it. To love is to have great affection and pleasure in something or someone. You see how they're different? Well, we cannot expect that they are the same thing. And I was inspired to write this because of a quote that I came across in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, because of one Geordi LaForge. Maybe I'm not making myself clear, Guinan Barclay. Well, he's always late. The man's nervous. Nobody wants to be around this guy. If I felt that nobody wanted to be around me, I'd probably be late and nervous too. Have we ever felt like that? Late, scattered, pained, out of sorts because nobody wants to be around us, or we feel that way? Well, oftentimes we can feel like nobody wants to be around us. But let's take a look in the mirror. I often feel like nobody wants to be around me because they're disliking who I am as a person, how I present myself. Even though I'm very nice, I come across as very quirky. And I'll probably always come across as quirky, and people will always probably have an issue with how I come across, but I'm not going to change who I am just because I'm not liked. That's not how I roll. I am unafraid to really change who I am, in that I love myself more, despite what others may think of me. I'm not going to change my nature, but I'm going to change the fact that I see myself poorly. I have a right to love myself rather than just tolerate my existence. I am always trying to fit in with people who don't want me to fit in, but I can't give up. And, I'm always late to the party when it comes to being aware of what others think of me socially, but I have a pretty good idea of what they think because they aren't quiet or subtle about what they think. I figure out pretty quickly that nobody wants to be around me because I'm too much and too weird for them to understand. And it is what it is. You can't control what people think or how they feel. You can't make people want to take the time to understand. I'm a neurodivergent person. I'm a neurodivergent actor. I'm a neurodivergent writer. I'm a neurodivergent artist. I was born the way I am. And, sadly, for a long time, I was ignorant to how other people reacted to it. For a long time, I believed that I had friends when I actually had none at all. I actually ended up writing an article about my neurodivergencies when I became aware of how much I affected other people, and because I wanted them to understand, hey, living life with a disability is not easy. And that article is titled IDIC Includes Me, and that's why Star Trek Matters, and it can be found on the official StarTrek.com website. That article spoke about how I went to 6 different elementary schools. Can you believe that? 6? simply because teachers thought I was academically stupid because I was slower, and therefore they thought I was unteachable. I just thought and learned differently. I wasn't stupid. I just saw the world differently. I saw instructions differently, but I wasn't unteachable. People just lacked patience to teach me. Nobody wanted to teach me to learn. Nobody had patience for someone who was different. So they sent me away. That's very much how it was and still is in my social life. Nobody has patience to be there for me. Nobody has patience to love me as I am. Nobody has patience to teach me, so they send me away. Instead of really teaching me and helping me to become my best self, leaving me to teach myself and help myself to become my best. I try my best to be a kind, loving, compassionate, thoughtful individual, but I do get over-eager about the process and clingy and excited about things, and that intensity can sometimes, more often than not, scare people. And a lot of people may not be used to intense levels of excitement, especially about mundane things that they take for granted. The constant hate, the constant frustration, the constant anger, the constant shunning, because I do get a lot of shunning because people simply don't get it. People simply don't get it. Those feel like slaps to my face and weights in my heart, and that seems to have no cure. There seems to be no end to it, but I still live. I still thrive, but that all started in childhood, those rejections. Like, my home life was full of difficulty because all except for my mother chose to deem me unworthy of love because of my neurodivergency, and I was even abused by my alcoholic father for it, and it was quite unfortunate. But he is dead now, and I am healing, and I've forgiven him, because it does no good to hang on to hate. Hate only makes one hateful. And even as I was growing up in school, in social situations, in church, I was seen as worthy of mockery. And now I am working to build a life that is devoid of hate, even though people try to pollute me with it every day. You know, I spoke in my last video about Julian Bashir. Julian Bashir was born severely disabled, but when Julian Bashir's parents realized that nobody would want to be around their son because of his delays, because of his struggles, they took him and had him surgically altered, as one would have a broken machine fixed. They saw him as broken. They saw him as unworthy of love, but that's not reality. And that caused him a lot of pain and a lot of anguish and a lot of trouble in his life. And he may never fully come to terms with that, because it's a lot of pain. It's so painful to have people who are supposed to love you see you as broken and try to fix you in a way that doesn't leave you feeling proud of who you are. We should never try to erase our authenticity or let others try to erase it. Parents should love their children as they are and not try to just alter them to the point where they are not themselves anymore. People should never be ashamed of being themselves. Parents should never be ashamed of encouraging their children to be themselves. And if they're different or diverse, who cares? Prioritize your children's happiness rather than comfort, and learn to love your child as they are rather than appease your own comfort. I mean, come on, you only get the opportunity to be a parent to a child so much. Don't screw it up. in favor of your own comfort. Anyway, I personally believe that I'm fine. It took me a lot of years to believe that I am fine as I am, that I am worthy of love as I am, that I would not change myself even if it were possible to do. I believe that I was born with challenges to teach others patience, love, compassion, and all the other positive qualities that can help make individuals inherently good if they wish to be. The problem, however, is that people struggle with wanting to be kind to me because it's hard to care about what is hard to understand. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I am hard to understand. But that doesn't mean I'm unworthy of love. Like, I have to hand it to Julian. He works so hard to live an authentic, happy life, even if he is hard to understand. And even Spock, a beautiful, beautiful individual in the Star Trek universe who is difficult to understand because of his mixed heritage and his desire to be loyal to both worlds, and the reaction his loved ones have about his desire to be loyal to both worlds, and the negativity he receives for that. Like, these people, they try to have the utmost self-respect and respect for others despite all the crap they get, so kudos to them. Like, we should really exercise utmost patience, dedication, and hard work to get results in our lives, even if our lives are full of challenges. Like, in August 2021, a virtual GalaxyCon panel featuring members of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine cast aired online. And during that panel, Chase Masterson, who was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, said that we should be more like Spock and stand up for those who lack the ability to stand up for themselves. I'm going to take it a little further here. Sometimes we lack the ability to stand up and embrace our authenticity and find joy in our authenticity. And you know what? We do, and we should stop that because we are great as we are. We should not just tolerate ourselves, but love ourselves. And we should also stand up for those who lack the ability to find joy in their authentic selves, because everybody is wonderful as they are. Everybody has a right to find joy in who they are. We shouldn't be afraid to find joy in who we are. And we shouldn't be afraid to find joy in who everybody else is. We are all gifts to the earth. We need to be good and kind people, and we may not find it easy to care about one another, but we must not forget to love one another. No matter what is going on in the world, we cannot allow circumstance to take away our desire to care about and to love one another. We can't just bank on tolerating one another and have that be enough. We need to love one another as we are. If people aren't given love through friendship, they can become love-starved and pretend as if they are welcome and wanted in situations that they aren't, just because they're so starved. They will even go into situations that are bad for them, even if they know that the situations are bad. Like, have you ever done that? Have you ever been so lonely and desperate for love and attention that you'll even seek out bad attention? Have you ever done that? I want you to think about that and reflect upon that, because bad attention is absolutely not better than no attention at all. We cannot and should not be afraid to seek out the right kind of attention. We should stay away from the bad attention because it will not help us to feed ourselves if we become love-starved. We should not seek to diminish our worth just so we get some sort of attention on us. having bad attention is not better than being left alone and isolated. But sadly, even I am guilty of having such a belief and letting it rule me for a time. Like back when I was in college, I spent a good deal of time socializing with individuals who belonged to the same religious organization that I did, because I felt I would be safe there. I felt I would be safe in that environment because we shared beliefs. Oh my goodness, I was mistaken, because just because people believe the same as you doesn't mean they're good people. Some people who believe the same as you do, they literally can use their beliefs or reinterpret the things they claim to believe as a way to, and a justification to dominate over and hurt other people, and that's not a way to live. I'm a believer in Christ, and Christ is all about loving one another unconditionally and infinitely, and some people are about being conditional with their love and only loving those who are willing to be a certain way and do what they are expected to do. And because I wasn't willing or able to be what I was expected to be and do what I was expected to do, I was unworthy of love. I stood out, so I was unworthy of love. I didn't fit a mold, so I was unworthy of love. But I couldn't tell. I could not tell that people had these judgments about me because my neurodivergent nature made it difficult. That people were laughing at me, not with me. I was late, and that I couldn't tell people's true intent in letting me be in their world, because they would let me be there, but they were really talking bad about me behind my back and just using me for their own personal sense of entertainment. I only learned all this later, long after the fact, and long after we had all graduated college. I am now older and just learning that I was truly naive. That I was truly naive and too easy to trust. I concocted a fantasy in my mind about what I hoped others would see in me and how they would welcome me. I knew that I wasn't liked or even loved, but I fantasized about being seen as more. Sometimes I still do. And it's a struggle sometimes to find people who can do more than just tolerate me. It's a struggle to find people who can love me, but I don't give up the fight because it is a good fight. So I fight the good fight because I see my worth. I know my worth. I'm of infinite worth. And I would hope that other people would see it. God sees it. Christ sees it. And I invite other people to see it too. The whole concept of tolerance, I believe, is antiquated, exclusionary, and it doesn't have a place in the same space as infinite diversity in infinite combinations. It's just basically tolerance, it's just enduring. It's not desiring. If we have to endure something, it doesn't seem very pleasant. So if we're tolerating something or someone, we must not see them as very pleasant. So let's move on from tolerance. Let's learn to toss it out of our vocabulary and learn to love. We can't control what other people think, however, but we can overcome people's obsession with tolerating us. We can overcome lacking love for ourselves, and we can learn to love ourselves as we are, even if people can't overcome tolerating us. Tolerating is something that Max Grodenchik talked about in that GalaxyCon panel I mentioned a little bit ago. Max Grodenchik, who was also on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, spoke on the true meaning of tolerance. He said that we should do more than just tolerate each other, and that got me thinking a lot. And here's my own spin on it. Tolerating is admitting differences exist. Appreciating is loving that differences exist. We need to do more than just tolerate. We need to love, and we need to stop throwing each other away like garbage. When people are difficult to love, difficult doesn't mean unsafe. If it's unsafe to love somebody, that's completely different than difficult. Difficult means they're being kind and good, and it's just hard to find the energy. But there's so many mental health helps out there that can help people find the energy to love those who they might find difficult to love. But those who are unsafe, well, you have to protect yourself, but you have to ask yourself, is somebody being difficult or unsafe? You have to discern the difference between the two words, because they don't mean the same thing. Is it actually going to harm you to love someone? Is it going to harm you mentally, emotionally, or physically, or is it just going to teach you patience to love someone? You need to determine that difference in your brain. Okay, so loving that differences exist is what part of infinite diversity and infinite combinations is about. And true love includes helping people love themselves and find the good in themselves when they struggle to, because guess what? Guess what? We are all guilty of struggling to find the good in ourselves. We are all guilty of needing help finding the good in ourselves. And we're all guilty of lacking awareness about what effect do we have on people. Sometimes we need to ask ourselves that. And if we can't ask ourselves that, we need to ask others that and hope that they give us a decent response and don't just tell us to piss off. This makes me think of a scene in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Storyteller, like the episode called The Storyteller, where Dr. Julian Bashir asks Miles O'Brien, "Do I annoy you?" And I mean, we have the right to ask other people if we annoy them. We have a right to ask for clarification on how we can be better. And people have a right to respond how they want, but it's really rude if they don't give us a response at all. If they just remain quiet, if they just say nothing at all, if they forget to care, like Miles did, if they avoid the question as if our self-betterment doesn't matter, then we don't need to seek feedback from them. We need to just look at ourselves and care about ourselves and do what we can to help ourselves, because sometimes people's advice will not help us. People's advice will not serve us if all they can do is tolerate us. It's not a shameful thing to ask for feedback. It's really not. It is really not a shameful thing to ask for feedback when we are striving to do better and wanting to know where we can improve. But if people aren't going to be useful in providing feedback, we can just assume we need to do better and seek resources that will help us to do better. And we can do more than tolerate ourselves as we are. We can just assume that we need to grow and go about doing it. We should not be ashamed of ourselves, but we can always be striving to do better. We need to look beyond what we see. We cannot be afraid to just look at ourselves and say, hey, we're not worth anything. Let's not put any work into ourselves. Let's not care enough. Because who cares whether or not we become better, right? You know, we are the ones that have to live with ourselves the most, so we should care. We should care about making ourselves better so we can be happy with ourselves, because we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. Looking beyond what we see, looking beyond the lack of reaction that people may give when we ask for feedback and making ourselves better. That might put us off a bit. It might discourage us, especially if people don't give us feedback, but we don't give up. We should hold ourselves dear to our heart and view the opportunity to grow as not a challenge, but an opportunity. And we should prove, not only to others, but to ourselves, that we are willing to take on the journey of self-improvement and choose self-love over self-tolerance, even if it means we stand alone in the journey of growth and progress that is. I mean, labels might come our way if we choose to love ourselves as we are and choose to do more than just tolerate ourselves as others may tolerate us. But, you know, at least we're being authentic if we choose to undergo the journey of loving ourselves. At least we're preserving our authenticity. Because there's really nothing honorable about sacrificing your authentic self just to fit in. Because you might not even fit in anyway. People might not like you anyway. And then what have you done? You've thrown away your truth. You've thrown away your power. To whom? To people who don't like you? To people who don't care about you? To people who would rather just shun you and pretend you don't exist? Preserve your authenticity, keep your power, and don't be afraid to shine as you are. Not many understand this or accept this as proper thinking. People would rather just fit in with everybody else, no matter what they have to sacrifice about themselves. Happiness be darned. Many believe that it is easier to sacrifice morals, integrity, and other parts of their authentic selves just so they can have better access to opportunities, more access to friends, and everything that would make their life more comfortable. But you know, comfort doesn't necessarily mean happiness. Comfort doesn't necessarily mean safety. Popularity and comfort don't necessarily go hand in hand with each other. Comfort might be confining. Comfort might be achievable only through sacrifice. And it's not really worth it to achieve comfort by sacrificing your authenticity. But a lot of people do it. A lot of people minimize themselves. Neurodivergent people do this especially. A lot of people minimize themselves to appease others and to gain access to opportunities that they might not otherwise have. Neurodivergent people minimize themselves. Like, they do this all the time, and it's quite sad. I do it a lot sometimes. I don't do it as often as I used to, but I still do it, and it's sad, and I shouldn't. It's a bad habit. But neurodivergent people minimize themselves to appear neurotypical simply because they know typical society is not so kind or welcoming to those who classify themselves as having any type of a challenge, because then they're perceived as a challenge. People in other marginalized, underprivileged communities can't minimize or erase who they are, however, because then that's taking away who they are. That's taking away their authenticity. They're sacrificing who they are and becoming someone they're not. Just for what? Something that might not even make them happy. It's truly better to be who you are. It's truly better to love yourself instead of just tolerating a false version of yourself for something that might not even bring happiness. So why do we do it? Why does society force people to minimize or erase their authenticity? We really shouldn't. We should let go of the stigma that we have to paint ourselves to become acceptable. And we should work on accepting ourselves and loving ourselves as we are, rather than just tolerating ourselves and doing whatever we can to erase our authenticity. Being ourselves isn't a sin. Being ourselves is a joy. Being ourselves is a choice we can make. It truly is a joy, and we should see it as a joy. We should not just tolerate our existence. We should love our existence. We are not going to truly succeed or find joy unless we do more than just tolerate it. The message, though, that society is sending out is that we can only find joy if we sacrifice our existence, our authentic existence. Our authenticity matters, though. We matter as we are. We matter as we are. We matter what we feel. We should care about life as we see it. We should care about who we are as people. We shouldn't just paint ourselves into something we're not, just to appease people who would only promise us things if we be what we are expected to be. Life is so very short. Like, honestly, it is so very short. So why are we doing things with the limited time that we have that will make us unhappy? Why are we being things that will make us unhappy? Please tell me that. You know, I spent a lot of time, like my 20s and early 30s, just being who I was expected to be, trying to fit into the expectations of other people. And I wasn't very happy. In fact, I was miserable, but I was so focused on pleasing others that I forgot to give consideration to my feelings. I hid my authentic self as much as I could and just became a robot, devoid of real emotions, and just played my part well. I tolerated people just being happy with my performance. I performed with being who I was expected to be. I didn't love myself, nor did anybody really love me. They just liked the version of me that I was giving to the world. And then I just came to realize, people's love is conditional here. They will only love me as long as I am doing and being what they expect, and it will all go away if I stop being what they want. But I'd rather be happy than be what people want. So I decided to embrace my diversity and just be what people wanted. I decided to just find joy in who I am and really find joy and what I really liked about life. And I started to truly like myself again. I lost friends, of course I did. But were they ever really my friends? Because they only liked a version of myself that they could control. They only liked a version of myself that they could tolerate. They didn't really love me for me. They just loved a curated version of me. And, we shouldn't curate ourselves to make other people happy. We should curate ourselves into people that we can love. Because at the end of the day, we have to look ourselves in the mirror. And infinite diversity and infinite combinations is supposed to be about embracing authenticity. Infinite combinations is supposed to include those with neurodivergencies. I've got neurodivergencies. And I am really just struggling each and every day to be proud of those neurodivergencies. It's really hard. But I'm becoming better at it. I'm becoming better at it each and every day. It's not easy being someone who sees and interprets the world, people or situations differently than others, and attracting a lot of grief for it. But people like me have to do it every day because we deserve to have a life just like everybody else. We really do deserve to have a life. But there's a sad part too. Neurotypical society and neurotypical just everybody choose to be cold and unforgiving and intolerant towards those who struggle to live up to expectations. They're not kind to those who choose to stand tall. They're not understanding to those who choose to go their own way and live their own life. They certainly aren't kind to those who fail to live up to expectations and instead create their own. Neurotypical society struggles to understand and be kind to those who they can't easily understand, instead of just saying, why don't we just take a moment to understand how you see the world? And they fail to be kind. They forget to care to those struggling to fit in. And the forgotten, they struggle with their self-worth. And it's just inappropriate behavior from those who forget. We need to remember each other. We need to do more than tolerate each other. Life is so very short. We need to love each other as we are. And develop a compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves. We are good enough as we are, and even if others don't see it or believe in it, we need to as well. We are quite correct in advocating for ourselves and making it clear that we are open to be friends with those who are willing to take the time to get to know us as we are, and not just expect that we will live by expectation, because those who struggle with challenges don't need one more. Because it really is a challenge to live up to expectations that people have of us. And it is a challenge to struggle with being comfortable in our own skin. We cannot be afraid to be comfortable in our own skin. Neurotypical, neurodivergent, anybody. And we are quite capable of and quite willing to be friends with everybody if we are just able to connect with people who are willing to discard their own intolerances or move beyond them. But they have to be willing to do more than tolerate, because tolerance is not love, and this world lacks love. as I talk about Star Trek, as I talk about the evolution of the world we live in now, I think about a quote by Cassidy Yates from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We are no longer bound by any limitations except the ones we impose on ourselves. And I think of a quote I made up in this essay as well. If we cannot let ourselves progress beyond tolerance and learn to love others, we only hurt our own growth. Like, really, we are our own worst enemies. We are truly our own worst enemies. What can we do to change that? Well, we can stop tolerating hurting ourselves and others with tolerance, and we can focus on love, because tolerance is not love. We are all of infinite worth, and if we saw that in one another, the world might become better. But everybody has to do their part, and we have to let go of what doesn't work, including our prejudices, including our fears, including the limitations that hold us back from becoming better people. And we have to be willing to see with new eyes and open our hearts to loving ourselves just as we are and loving each other as we are.